Hello there. A few disclaimers as I get going here. My window's open because it's cheaper than having the AC on, and that's exactly why it's open. So you might hear some, let's just call it ambiance. Ambient? I'm not sure what the word is. Ambient. Okay, oh, there goes my trash can. Okay, hi. Welcome to my channel, The Average Anna, where I love a great many things, but two of the main things I love, aside from God and my family, are being a mom and massage. So, this channel is hopefully going to be a blend of those two things, and I decided I would go into detail about my birth story. And the theme that I really want to get across is that do your best not to make a decision out of fear for your... Sorry, that's a really big truck. Do your best not to make a decision out of fear for your prenatal care or where you're going to deliver. So, some backstory. I was raised by, they did their best, but I think they had a lot of fear about a lot of different things. So, I was raised as an anti-vaxxer and just very fearful of the medical community and big pharma. And it's not to say that some of those fears or concerns aren't warranted, but I think they just have or maybe they've grown past it. They've had an overwhelming fear of the medical community that was then passed on into my siblings and I. So when I got pregnant, I did not want anything to do with the hospital. I knew that I wanted a midwife, and I decided on a birthing center because I thought that kind of was the intermediary between the two worlds. And the birth center I went to was 5 minutes from a hospital. So if something needed to happen, I could get to care pretty quickly. So during my pregnancy, I really enjoyed the midwifery model of care. And I'm hoping by the time I'm done telling this story that it's not going to seem as though I'm attacking midwives, because I love them. I loved my prenatal care. I guess I'll finish the story and then I'll do the qualifying statements. But I do love midwives. And so I really had a pretty easy pregnancy from a general medical sense. My blood pressure would run a little high, but that's only when I went to the birthing center, because I think they call it white coat syndrome when you're just nervous of anything medical. So I would take my blood pressure at home and it would be perfectly fine. So I kept logs of my own blood pressure throughout most of my pregnancy. And I did struggle with some things like constipation, and then I have very bad varicose veins in my lower legs. We get those from our mom and dad, genetics. So I had to wear these extremely beautiful compression socks for most of my pregnancy. After I had my little girl, a friend of mine ever so kindly told me, he was like, "Yeah, you looked really weird." But he was smart enough not to tell me that when I was pregnant. And he waited to tell me that when I was probably a year postpartum. So congrats to him. He did pretty good there. But he also wasn't wrong. I would wear these compression stockings with short, because I'm very hot-natured, and tank top, and I did not care. Not even a little bit. So that and I just was uncomfortable because I was doing massage during my pregnancy, and it just put a ton of strain on my lower back. So the last month I actually couldn't walk very well because I think I'd overworked my lower back so much that it was not a good time. But no real medical related things. I pulled a muscle in my stomach early on. So more backstory here. I was pregnant when COVID started, and at the time was running my own business part-time. No, I hadn't opened my business yet. This is so many details that I've forgotten about. I was working for somebody. I was working for a spa as a massage therapist, and I was working at a gym as an administrative assistant. Well, it just so happened that both of those things were deemed, I think, what was it? Non-essential. So I lost both of my jobs pretty quickly. And I didn't want to just take the unemployment because I felt really weird doing that. I was sure there were other people who needed it more. So I started working as a housekeeper in a hotel. Let me tell you, I think that is the toughest job I have worked. That or as a kennel assistant. They're both up there. Scrubbing dog kennels or scrubbing, they're not human kennels. That's not, what, that's kind of, sorry, that parallel, just because like you stay there for a little bit and then you leave, but you can leave when you want versus the poor puppies who need to be adopted. Adopt the puppies. And so anyway, both of those have been the hardest jobs that I have ever worked. And I was in my first trimester of pregnancy, and a friend of mine had 2 miscarriages, and I was scrubbing and trying to finish the room, and I probably moved weird and I pulled a muscle in my stomach, and I thought I was having a miscarriage, and I called my midwife bawling, and she was so kind. And my coworkers were amazing. I ended up having to go home, so they had to do extra work because she told me, she's like, well, I think you've just pulled a muscle, but to be safe, let's just get you where you need to go. Let's get you home so you can rest and take a nap. And I felt better. And the ladies that cleaned my rooms for me were so sweet. Everybody was amazing. So other than that, and again, I thought it was a medical thing, but turned out I was perfectly fine. So I think overall I had a relatively easy pregnancy. And when I say that, being pregnant can be tough because your whole body is changing to accommodate this other life, which is amazing, but it's also quite taxing on your body. So when I say it was relatively easy, it's not that I didn't struggle. I remember, there were days I was exhausted. There were days where I was really emotional. There were days where I just wanted to go ahead and meet my baby because I was so excited. So there's a lot to it, but medically, it was an easy pregnancy. So I started labor at midnight on a Sunday. Yes, so started labor midnight on a Sunday. There we go. I'm trying to remember. And it kind of came and went. So the contractions, they weren't really bad. So I slept most of the night, and I texted my midwife and let her know. And she's like, well, just go to sleep and see what happens. And nothing had really progressed. And in the morning, she said that the contractions might ease up until the following evening, because she said that's where a lot of times women have babies at night. Who knew? I didn't know that. And so she was right. The contractions kind of came. They would stop and start all throughout the day. And then probably around 2:00 in the afternoon, they started picking up getting a little more intense. And they were really hurting in my back. And I was like, this is weird. I didn't realize that this was going to be a thing, but okay. And then around 5, I did the thing that first time moms do. And I was like, this is it. It's happening. Let's go. So I roll up into the birth center, and I was like 2 or 3 centimeters dilated. And she did tell me, she said, well, you're working pretty hard for being just this far along. Why don't you go home and sit in a bathtub? And I think she told me to take 1 Benadryl. I think. I can't remember. It was do one or the other thing. I cannot remember. There were 2 things. She said I could pick one to do because she wanted me to get some rest while I was not progressing as far. And for the life of me at this point, now that I'm doing this video, I can't remember what she had said exactly. But anyway, husband took me back home. I got in the bathtub, and I do remember, so I was laying in the bathtub in the dark, and I was sleepy because I was tired already. And a contraction would hit, and I would lurch up out of the tub because it hurt so bad. And I'd go back, and I'd lurch up out of the tub, then I'd go back. And it was all in my lower back. It was so strange to me. So around 8 o'clock in the evening, I had progressed to screaming through contractions. And I started telling my husband I wanted to go to the hospital. And before I had a conversation with him that I might ask to go to the hospital, and I really didn't want to go, like before labor started. And so he did what he knew I wanted, and he called the midwife, and she said, we'll bring her on back because, they wanted to override that pain part of my body that was saying, take me to the hospital, give me the epidural. And because non-labor me was like, don't you tap out on this. But labor me was, I want out. Anyway, so that car ride, y'all, I don't know what happened. Somehow I ended up in my husband's t-shirt and a pair of his gym shorts and no shoes. I have no idea. I don't remember ever putting these clothes on. They were just there. And that car ride, I rode in the back seat. I was on all fours. I was screaming. It seemed to take forever. Anytime I would just yell, it hurt so bad. So we get to the birth center. My poor husband, I don't remember. I think he was very supportive. I remember him saying things, but I don't remember what he said. But his tone was very low and comforting, and the poor man was probably scared out of his mind as his wife is screaming in the back seat. So I have a very high pain tolerance. Doesn't sound like it, but I promise you it'll make more sense. At least it did to me after, sorry, there's something blowing across the street and I got distracted. I had told my midwife that I had a high pain tolerance, but then when I came in and I was only 2 or 3 centimeters, I think she decided I didn't have a high pain tolerance and that I was being dramatic. I can be a dramatic person as well, but keep that in mind for the rest of the story. So we've gotten to the birth center and I just marched right in and fell into my midwife's arms sobbing. And she was very kind, gave me a hug and got me to the room. And I think at that point I had made it to 6 centimeters and I was so disappointed. Y'all have no idea how disappointed I was. And at some point they started filling the tub, because it was a really beautiful birthing suite with a birth tub. And I don't remember, I kept changing positions as I labored. I would walk, I'd get on the bed, I'd sit on a ball. There was a birthing stool. And it just hurt so bad. So somewhere I got into the tub and that felt really, really nice. I did love the birthing tub, but they didn't let me stay in there because they said that like something seemed to be wrong. I wasn't progressing and I was in all of this pain. And then around midnight, she crowned and I was told, oh, you're going to have this baby in half an hour. I was so excited. Yes. Finally. Feels like I've been doing this for, well, I guess I've been doing it for about 24 hours at that point. Not the huge, intense part for 24 hours, but hey, it's a lot of work, a lot of pain. And then nothing happened. And I am like doing my darndest to get this child out. And at some point, I looked at her and I said, why don't you vacuum her out? And my midwife looks at me and she says, what? And I said, I know you clean these floors with a vacuum. Vacuum her out. She's stuck. And I'm like dead serious. And my midwife looks at me and without missing a beat, she says, I dry mop the floors. I love that. I don't know how she was that quick on her feet, but she was good. And in my labor mindset, I was like, oh, there's no vacuum here. Fine. Okay, you dry mop. Okay, that makes sense. Somewhere along this point, I was also convinced that everybody in my life had lied to me and that babies do not come out. They just don't. You're just in labor forever. And if they do come out, they come out your bum. That's what I was convinced of because my back pain was so bad. I think after I got out of the tub, I had my husband put his thumbs into my lower back and the poor man wasn't allowed to move. If he took his thumbs off my back, the pain was so intense. I thought my spine was cracking and I would just scream at him to do it again. And the poor guy, I mean, he's a tough guy and he lifts and it's very strong, but if you, like, as a massage therapist, like if I were to use my thumbs for hours, I would be so weak from that. He did such a good job. So she's crowned, nothing's happening. We're not vacuuming her out because she dry mops. Somewhere probably around, I have no idea on the time because I'm not tracking the time. I'm just guessing. I knew she crowned at midnight because I think I had asked what time it was for some reason. I don't know why, but, and then, so I'm guessing maybe around 2:30 or 3, I had been sitting on a birthing stool for a long time because that felt like the best position for me. And my midwife had decided, well, I need you to move because this isn't working. Like, I need to check what's going on. And I tried to stand up and I couldn't. I just had no strength left in my legs. So my husband had to get one side and the midwife got the other, and they carried me to the bed. And as she was doing some checking, she found out that she was sunny side up. So the reason I was in so much pain is because our spines were bumpity-bumping. It was bone on bone. And apparently that's one of the worst pains you can have. I don't really know how people judge pain scale. I can tell you it's the worst pain I've ever been in, but I also haven't had a lot of things happen to me. But so and I will say that was actually her checking the position was so incredibly painful because she had to put her fingers in and then there was a contraction happening. So not only was there a baby, but there was also a hand there. It was so, y'all, it was horrible. But then so after we decided that she was sunny side up, and she said, well, I think you're gonna need an episiotomy. And I'm unmedicated, you guys. And I'm scared. I have been in so much pain for so many hours. The last thing I want is more pain. But she was not moving. And so I said, okay. I asked her if it was gonna hurt, and she said, no more than you're hurting now. And I said, okay. And she did it. And it did hurt, but I mean, she was right, dead on. It was just all mixed in with the rest of the pain. And then, so I finally got, like, I made some progress. And the first thing that popped out was her face. And apparently she was green because my midwife said, you need to get her out or I have to transport you. And I remember at that moment looking up at my husband. He has been a rock this whole time. But once she said that and I like cut my eyes over to him, there was panic on his face. And so I started to panic because this is my baby. And she said, you need to push. I said, give me 10 seconds. And I breathed for 10 seconds, maybe 5. And then I summoned the strength from, I don't know where. I used every single force in my body. Like, I knew that if I did not get her out on this push, I wasn't going to be able to. And so I just summoned everything and pushed from, I don't even know, beyond my toes, anything. And I got her out. And she was okay. I got her head out. So then I could, once her head was out, I was like, okay, she can breathe, she's okay. And then in the next push, I got the rest of her out. And she was perfectly fine. She was amazing. And yeah, the relief after that was immediate. And I'm just thinking about the miracle of it, and there's nothing like it. I don't have words to describe it. And so after I got her out and she was okay, and then everybody just took a breath for a little bit. And then they had told me that my placenta would come out and I'd feel another contraction, but I started to feel another contraction and I panicked because I was like, no, I don't want to do this again. I don't want to do this again. And my placenta it was totally fine. That was it. Yeah, so totally healthy little baby. I did end up tearing. So at the time, I was told I had a 3rd-degree tear, and my midwife did say that I was bad enough that she could send me to a surgeon, but that she was really good at this if I wanted her to try it. And I had labored for 28 hours and I was in so much pain. And this fear, y'all, the last thing I wanted to do was go to a hospital and be away from my baby. And the thought of moving was so scary to me. My parts were so incredibly sore that, I didn't want to go in a car at all. And maybe she would have called a stretcher. I'm not sure. I have no idea. Or called an ambulance. There we go. And so I said I wanted her to stitch me. And she stitched me up. She used some lidocaine and then stitched me up. And from there, we did end up going home sometime the next day. So overall, I was in labor around 28 hours roughly. And again, most of that was not, I think like a good 12 hours of it was just the off, stop, and start again labor, just the easy part of labor. I say that because I don't think there's an easy part of labor. And from there, that was my window. I'm trying to debate whether to stop there and then talk about my postpartum care. I think I will. We'll stop there. We'll stop with, we have a healthy baby. I'm okay for the most part. And I think I'll pick up again another day with the rest of it. So yeah, I might have to revisit the fear part again. But I think that's good. So stay tuned for part 2, and I will see you guys there.